What is up, my dashing dudes? I am the Hans TV, and guess what? I'm back. I had to take a little hiatus because of school, but we're back and we're diving into r/stories about Kevin. Our first Kevin for the day comes to us courtesy of Angry Goth Boy. Kevin bites his own dog. Okay, so this isn't one story, but rather a list of things a Kevin that used to go to my school did. I used to be friends with him. One day we were hanging out, and I was telling him about my creepy neighbor. I half-jokingly said, "I'm afraid he'll sneak into my house at night and kill me." Kevin makes his creepy smile and says, "Or rape you?" That was the last day I purposefully hung out with him. My mom is friends with his mom, so sometimes I have to go over to their house. He has this dog, and at the time, it was a tiny puppy. The dog was barking a lot, and generally being annoying, so his mom tells Kevin, "Go deal with the dog." Kevin's interpretation of dealing with the dog is crawling on the ground on all fours and barking at the poor thing. He then proceeded to bite it. He bit his own dog. Of course, his mom started screaming at him and he was sent to his room. Apparently, also the dog was not peeing on its pee pad, so Kevin peed on the pee pad to demonstrate to the dog. Another time when we were over for dinner, Kevin stayed at his room the entire time instead of coming out to join us. The only time he came out of his room was to get food, and he was wearing nothing but his underwear. Of course, I was shocked. When he saw my reaction, he yelled, "What?" I wasn't here when this happened, but I heard this story from a couple of people and I believe it. Apparently, when he was in science class, he shoved his hand in his pants and started fingering himself. He removed his hand from his pants, sniffed his finger, which had a little brown spot on it, and licked it. Sorry, I just kind of threw up in my mouth there a little bit. So, that was kind of gross. Let's move on to the next story before I actually puke. This one comes from Arcadia Rhodes. House rules when your roommate is a Kevin. Back in the 90s, I lived with a Kevin. He was a great guy, but I ended up having to establish some unique house rules because of him. Rule 1. No baking citrus fruit. One day I came home and could smell something burning. I looked at the oven and it was set to 450 degrees Fahrenheit. I looked inside. In the oven was a cookie sheet. On this cookie sheet were several whole lemons and limes that had swollen to the size of grapefruits. I called to Kevin, who was lounging on the sofa, and asked in confusion, "Why is there citrus fruit in the oven?" This was the response he gave. "I was watching Martha Stewart make potpourri, and I decided that I wanted to make it." Now, Martha had apparently sliced up the fruit, laid it out on the cookie sheet, and put it in the oven at the lowest temp to slowly dry it out. Kevin had attempted this, grown impatient, and raised the temperature. The results were caramelized, burned discs that ended up being discarded. For attempt number 2, he had placed them in the oven whole. Had I not interfered, his plan had been to slice them up once they were hot. When I explained that this process was meant to dry the fruit, not cook it, he removed them from the oven in defeat. The fruit had swollen as the juices inside heated up. I watched as Kevin proceeded to spear the fruit with a fork, spraying searing hot acid all over himself. Rule number 2. No pledging the floor. I arrived home starving and proceeded to prepare a snack of cheese and crackers on a plate. I proceeded to attempt to carry this plate into the living room. Attempt. We lived in an apartment with parquet floors. We had no area rugs. I am not, by nature, a clumsy person. So imagine my surprise when I completely wiped out between the sofa and the coffee table. While I was lying there covered in broken crackers, I couldn't help but notice the distinct smell of lemon furniture polish. This was odd because there was no wood furniture in this room. Kevin arrived home a while later and I was compelled to ask, did you pledge the floor? He grinned and informed me that since it makes furniture so shiny, it would be perfect for the floor. Rule 3 and the final rule for the day. No hiding coffee in the furniture. Never in the entire time we lived together did I ever see Kevin consume coffee that didn't come in a paper cup. We didn't own a coffee maker of any kind. Because of this, I found it odd when I could smell rancid coffee in the living room. I looked around for an abandoned cup, but couldn't find anything. Finally, the mystery of the smell got too much, and I decided to go hunting. There was an empty ceramic vase on the coffee table, and for some inexplicable reason, It was full of whole coffee beans. I took it to the kitchen and went back to my TV show. Why can I still smell coffee? I start examining the sofa. All along the piped edge of the back cushions, I found a row of individual beans. I confronted him later that evening. He told me he found old beans in the back of the fridge and thought they'd smell good. He'd also said that he debated putting them in the vents but couldn't find a way to make them stay. I have more stories, but some are NSFW. Well, at least that story wasn't disgusting! Our next Kevin comes from Uniquely Bleak Sheep. Kevin jumps into the wrong moving car. So, one day after work, Kevin and I planned to go play some disc golf, and he asked me to pick him up on the way. Some helpful background info here. We are both college students at the time, and I was driving a silver minivan. Also, my friend is a pretty big stoner and can be an idiot at times. You guys are familiar with Kevin, right? Anyway, I was on my way over to pick him up, and while stopped at a light a block or two away, texted him that I'm about to pull up. So Kevin goes to stand by the street to wait for me. Light turns green, I go forward and turn on his street. Right as I'm turning, I see an identical silver minivan driving down the street about 100 feet in front of me. I also see Kevin by the street watching this other minivan approach, slowly walking towards it. I immediately think this is going to be good, knowing Kevin and that he is stony baloney. Unfortunately for the other minivan driver, he wasn't driving very fast and also has his windows rolled down. So naturally, Kevin, not looking too closely, thinks it's me messing with him by not slowing down. So he proceeds to start sprinting at this car and jumps head first through the open passenger side window. I cannot believe what I just witnessed and stopped my car, doubling over in laughter as half of Kevin is still sticking out of the car as it slams to a halt, and he finishes squirming his legs into the seat. He then finally looks up at the driver for the first time and goes, "Oh, you're not okay." The driver happened to be some poor high school kid, looking on in shock and terror as this crazy looking college kid, reeking of weed, jumped into his window. Not sure if he said anything as Kevin opens the door, gets out, apologizes, and sees me sitting in my car laughing my ass off 50 feet behind him and runs on over. This next post comes from Big Ass Puppies. My husband's ex was a total Kavina, retelling from my husband's perspective. Kavina at this time was a very nice, although less than intelligent 16-year-old girl, someone whose tightly wound curls may have influenced her common sense. I picked her up after school and we headed back to her place to watch a movie. Before the movie began, she decided to make popcorn. Her microwave was built into the kitchen island, so it sat at about hip level. She took out a pack of popcorn, removed the plastic, crouched down to throw it in the microwave, and starts the timer. A minute or two later, I noticed no popping has occurred, but there is the distinct smell of plastic. I ask her what that smell was, and she simply shrugs it off, not knowing what it could be. So I go to investigate and open the microwave, only to discover a loaf of bread. Somehow she got down to eye level with the microwave and placed the popcorn in the microwave without noticing there was an entire loaf of bread in there. The plastic bag had melted completely, seeping over the entire loaf. P.S. She also thought garage door rhymed with orange. No, but according to Eminem, porridge does. Our final Kevin for the day comes to us courtesy of X Market Lady X. Group work Kevina, mega fail saga. So there are 4 of us in a group this whole semester. There's me, G1, G2, and Kevina. G1, G2, and I have had a class together before, but in different groups. G2 and I worked in groups online only. The 3 of us work together very well. Unfortunately, in this class, we have a simulation that's worth a big chunk of the grade with the midterm and final presentation. Then the overall simulation performance, basically judging how we grow a fictional company with certain products. Each week we do a different quarter in the game. Anywho, since week 2, Kavina just never got the hang of this. We're all set to graduate in 2 months with our bachelors, and she acts like this is her first semester in college. She never reads the simulation suggestions and graphs, does not read the class PowerPoint notes he uploads online, and just asks the dumbest questions. Kavina was out for 2 weeks and didn't tell us until halfway through the 2 sessions she wasn't coming because reasons. Kavina not only doesn't show, but doesn't contribute anything for these 2 weeks. Our big presentation was coming up and she never asked what to research or do. Our group meeting to get this thing together was 2 days before the actual presentation in front of the instructor alone. So she messages us 2 hours before to ask if we can change the meeting location to 20 minutes away so she doesn't have to drive so far. You had 6 days to mention this earlier, and no, we're all already in the vicinity. She gets there late and then just sits as we're all working, adding to the group file. Guys, I don't know what's going on. What do I need to do? We tell her to pick a slide nobody's done yet, 6 at this point, and just start typing. She continues to sit there looking around with a vacant expression, whining about how she has no clue. Hey, at least she's honest there. She finally looks at one and asks what a very common term means. I tell her to Google it, as that's what I'm doing as a refresher and way to get good examples. Well, we go back to staring. At the end, she's given one slide. One slide to finish a very easy subtopic over the course of 1.5 days. Meeting over, fast forward 2 days to the morning of the presentation, when she still never did anything on that slide. We emailed the professor about everything, and it was suggested she just not show up. When G1 messaged her, all hell broke loose. Suddenly, she doesn't know why she worked so hard, and we were, and I quote, excluding and bullying her despite all the hard work she's done. She has the nerve to tell G1 she hopes G1 never has to deal with any hardships. G1 loses it and tells her about her major health issues she just beat. Kavina also lied about asking G2 for help, or telling her she wasn't coming ahead of time. We managed to get a perfect score without Kavina showing up. Kavina has yet to message us 2 days after that asking what to do for the next part. I should note, the instructor can see how much time we spend logged on to the simulation and what we contribute, so our story about her literally doing nothing is proven. And that, my friends, is one of the worst parts about group projects anywhere. Well, alright my dashing dudes, that is going to do it for today's episode of r/Stories About Kevin. I hope that y'all enjoyed the stories, and if you did, as always, I'm going to link them down in the description below so you can go check them out if you want to. Feel free to subscribe, drop a like, and a comment down below what you'd like me to read next. A huge thank you to my patrons who have stuck there with me through these past couple weeks, and a huge thank you to everyone who has subscribed so far. Y'all are just making me feel really good about what I'm doing, and we're going to be back on schedule from now on. This last couple weeks has just been really hard, but with that being said, I will see you in the next video.